With a wingspan approaching 2 meters and talons powerful enough to rival those of a grizzly bear, the harpy eagle is more than just a bird. It is the rainforest's perfect killing machine. But on Barro Colorado Island, in the middle of Lake Gatun in Panama, the harpy eagle was given an unprecedented mission: to become the police force of a dying ecosystem. It all began in 1914, when the completion of the Panama Canal inadvertently created a living laboratory at the heart of Lake Gatun. On Barro Colorado Island, the disappearance of large predators tore apart the fragile natural order. To correct this mistake, humans reintroduced the former king of the forest Canopy, believing that restoring the apex predator would allow balance to re-establish itself naturally. But instead of salvation, that return ignited a massacre. What really happened on Barro Colorado Island? What did the harpy eagle do that turned a paradise into an arena? Join Terran Works as we uncover the story. The Panama Canal is often hailed as the eighth wonder of the modern world. To build this monumental project, the United States dammed the Chagres River, creating Lake Gatun with an area of more than 430 km². At the time, the largest artificial lake in the world, and still one of the most important man-made lakes on the planet today. From a maritime perspective, the canal's impact was revolutionary. A ship traveling from New York to San Francisco previously had to sail around Cape Horn, a journey of more than 22,000 kilometers. Thanks to the Panama Canal, this distance was reduced to only about 9,500 kilometers, saving over 13,000 kilometers, equivalent to 2 to 3 weeks of travel time and millions of dollars in fuel costs for each large vessel. Today, the Panama Canal handles roughly 5 to 6% of total global maritime trade, with an average of 14,000 to 15,000 ship transits per year. Direct revenue generates more than $4 billion USD annually for Panama, accounting for a significant portion of the national budget and turning this small country into a strategic choke point in the global supply chain. But maintaining that operation comes at the cost of permanent changes to the natural landscape. The creation of Lake Gatun submerged tens of thousands of hectares of tropical rainforest, transforming a once continuous forest into a fragmented mosaic of lake islands. It was precisely from this massive operation called the Panama Canal that Barro Colorado Island, BCI, was born. As the waters of Lake Gatun rose, the highest remaining hills became islands, and Barro Colorado, covering about 1,500 hectares, emerged as the largest of them. Since 1923, the island has been selected as a tropical biological research station and has quickly become one of the most intensively studied rainforest sites in the world. On the surface, Barro Colorado appears to be a perfect success story. An intact rainforest, dense vegetation, abundant wildlife. A living laboratory where nature seems to have been shielded from direct human impact. However, by the late 1970s, after more than half a century of continuous observation, scientists came to a grim realization. Absolute safety is the enemy of evolution. When pressure from predators disappeared, the rule of survival of the fittest stalled. The ecosystem looked lush and stable on the outside, but in reality it was functioning like a biological zombie, a system in which the most critical links had been removed, causing the forest structure to begin changing from within. With their natural enemies gone, primates on the island, especially howler monkeys and white-faced capuchins, began to experience a population explosion. Long-term surveys show that the density of howler monkeys on Barro Colorado is 3 to 5 times higher than in mainland forests of Panama, where large predators are still present. In some areas, primate numbers per square kilometer reached levels that ecologists describe as exceeding the rainforest's biological carrying capacity. Their calls echoed across the island, no longer serving as warnings but instead signaling absolute dominance. Troops expanded their foraging ranges and exploited nearly every available food source, from young leaves and ripe fruit to newly sprouting shoots. Studies on forest regeneration at BCI recorded a sharp decline in seedling survival. For some shade-tolerant tree species, the number of saplings reaching maturity dropped by more than 70% compared to control forests on the mainland. At first, the sight of dense monkey populations in the Canopy was seen as a symbol of conservation success. Over time, however, the darker side became clear. Excessively high densities led to intense internal competition, more frequent aggressive behavior, and, most critically, a decline in genetic diversity as the population remained isolated for long periods. Scientists began to realize that this was not a healthy population, but a biological population bubble. And by the laws of nature, every bubble eventually bursts. By the end of the 20th century, scientists on Barro Colorado began to record a quiet decline in primate populations. There were no signs of predation, no obvious conflicts, just a gradual weakening that spread over time. The cause lay in the very structure of a population that had exceeded the island's carrying capacity. High densities increased the prevalence of disease, while food resources grew steadily poorer, leading to declines in health and reproductive success. Barro Colorado still appeared lush and green on the outside, but internally the ecosystem had begun to slip. Without the need for predators, self-generated imbalance alone was enough to push this safe paradise into a slow, silent process of degradation. To rescue the exhausted ecosystem, a bold decision was proposed: reintroducing an apex predator. That predator was the harpy eagle, a bird once regarded as the king of the skies in the rainforests of Central America. The harpy eagle is no ordinary bird of prey. With a wingspan approaching 2 meters and talons stretching over 13 centimeters long, it is one of the most powerful raptors ever to exist. Its entire body is built for a single purpose: to dominate the forest canopy, a realm where no other predator can truly rival it. The arrival of harpy eagles on Barro Colorado carried a clear message: the era of artificial safety was over. The reintroduced individuals were carefully raised and fitted with tracking devices, allowing scientists to monitor every flight, every hunt, and the way these birds re-engaged with an ecosystem that had long been deprived of its highest regulatory tier. But why did they have to be reintroduced in the first place? Why did this dominant bird disappear? The answer lies in the shared tragedy of apex predators. Harpy eagles cannot survive in small, fragmented forest patches. They depend on vast tracts of intact primary rainforest. On average, a single breeding pair requires around 10,000 hectares of forest to hunt, nest, and raise their young. However, deforestation and the construction of the Panama Canal shattered their habitat into isolated fragments. As a result, by the mid-20th century, the harpy eagle had nearly vanished from Panama. And when the king of the canopy fell, the entire kingdom it once protected began to weaken. Saving the harpy eagle is therefore not just about conserving a magnificent bird. It is an effort to preserve the very soul of the rainforest, ensuring that its biological structure does not collapse completely. When the first harpy eagles spread their wings over the skies of Barro Colorado, a brutal confrontation unfolded between them and the temporary rulers of the forest, the primates. Howler monkeys, once accustomed to lounging atop treetops to bask in the sun, suddenly became almost perfect living targets. Data from tracking devices revealed a terrifying truth for the monkey troops. Harpy eagles are professional killers. They do not hunt noisily or through prolonged chases. They ambush. A harpy can remain motionless on a branch for hours, its razor-sharp eyes piercing through layers of foliage, and when the moment comes, it strikes. Statistics show that during the early phase of reintroduction, harpy eagles achieved a hunting success rate of nearly 50% for females and around 35 to 40% for males. On average, each individual secured a kill every 3 to 5 days, with prey consisting mainly of howler monkeys, white-faced capuchins, and sloths. However, the most important change was not the number of monkeys being killed, but the shift in the behavior of those that survived. Fear, A primal survival instinct had officially returned. Instead of calmly feeding in the highest layers of the forest, where young leaves and sunlight are most abundant, the monkeys began retreating to lower levels, where dense foliage offered protection from the harpy eagle's gaze. They became quieter, more vigilant. Whenever a shadow swept overhead, entire troops would immediately sound alarms and disappear into cover. This is the essence of a trophic cascade. As monkeys changed where they fed, pressure on the upper canopy decreased, allowing plant species that had long been overexploited a chance to recover. Seeds began to germinate, and small birds and insects, previously outcompeted by monkeys, started to return. The fear instilled by the harpy eagle became the glue that reconnected the fragmented ecosystem, forcing every organism to once again function within its proper role. Despite bringing positive signals, the return of the harpy eagle also triggered powerful biological shocks. The ecosystem on Barro Colorado had been distorted for so long that reintroducing an apex predator was like pouring cold water into an overheated glass bowl. Within just the first few months, scientists recorded that some howler monkey troops lost 30 to 40% of their individuals, especially mature adults that played central roles in social structure. This decline affected not only primates, but also disrupted seed dispersal for many plant species that depend almost entirely on monkeys for reproduction. Other small animals, which had previously benefited from the indirect protection of dense monkey groups, also became secondary targets for the eagles. Rather than quickly returning to balance, the rainforest slipped into a new phase of ecological chaos. After a period of implementation, the Harpy Eagle Reintroduction project on Barro Colorado had to be suspended. The reason was not failure, but the simple fact that the island was still far too small for a bird of the harpy's scale. The eagles began flying beyond the island's boundaries, venturing into human settlements, and facing the risk of being shot. Moreover, maintaining a stable harpy population within such a fragmented area was genetically unviable in the long term. Scientists came to realize that although the harpy eagle had performed its role as an ecological police force remarkably well, humans could not simply release it into a large cage and hope everything would heal on its own. The experiment ended with much regret, but it also opened a trove of invaluable scientific insight. It demonstrated that conservation is not merely about preserving what remains, but about protecting the entire web of complex relationships whose true value we often only recognize once they have disappeared. The story of Barro Colorado is not an isolated case. It is just one of many attempts to correct ecosystems that have been thrown off course by human actions. Elsewhere, under different conditions, similar efforts have led to completely opposite outcomes. The most famous example is Yellowstone National Park, where the reintroduction of gray wolves in the mid-1990s became a global symbol of successful ecological restoration. What is striking is that the act of reintroduction itself was essentially the same. In both Yellowstone and Barro Colorado, humans brought back an apex predator with the same goal: to restore a natural order that had been disrupted. Yet the outcomes were radically different. One system gradually rebalanced over time, while the other was forced to halt the experiment. The difference lay not in the species being reintroduced, but in the ecological context. Yellowstone is an open system, vast, well-connected, and spacious enough for species to adapt. Barro Colorado, by contrast, is small, isolated, and forced to change far too quickly. This contrast leads to a core lesson. In conservation, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. A decision that is right for one ecosystem can become a serious mistake in another if it is made without a full understanding of scale, connectivity, and natural limits. The story of Barro Colorado is a stark reminder that nature is not a machine humans can dismantle and reassemble at will. Sometimes a safe island without predators becomes a slow death sentence for an ecosystem. Thank you for joining Terran Works on today's journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss our next fascinating stories.